Welcome to Crimson Moon Stories, the home of original full-length werewolf romance stories. Don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy my stories. Now the story begins.
The night tasted of iron and ashes. Viera stood before the council, shoulders square though every breath felt like swallowing broken glass. The great hall of the Blackstone Pack was crowded. Wolves lined the walls, their faces cold and unreadable. At the center sat Elder Caldus, flanked by the two other council elders. And beyond them, watching from the shadows, was her mate, Alpha Kale. Her mate no longer, Viera corrected herself bitterly. The bond had snapped the day she had lost their unborn child, leaving only a hollow ache in her chest. Elder Caldus, she began, her voice rough from hours of silent weeping. I have served this pack faithfully for 6 years as your Luna. You failed, Elder Caldus interrupted, his gaze heavy. The loss of the heir is the final straw, Viera. Your weakness endangers the bloodline. I did everything I could, she whispered. I bled for this pack, I fought beside Kale. And yet we are left with nothing, Elder Caldus said, leaning forward. The council has spoken. You are stripped of your rank and cast out. For a heartbeat, silence pressed on her ears so hard she could hear her own pulse. Her gaze flew to Kale. Once, he would have crossed the room to defend her. Once, his eyes had burned with devotion. Now they were cold amber glass. Kale, she rasped. Say something. Please. His jaw tightened. The pack must survive, Viera. Your presence here only deepens the wound. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Viera's legs nearly buckled. She had known this might come, but not like this, not with Kale turning away as if their years together were a stain to scrub out. When 2 guards stepped forward, Viera felt every eye on her, pity from a few, triumph from others. She raised her chin, swallowing her tears. I served you with everything I had, she told them. One day, you may remember that. The guards escorted her out. Behind her, the great hall doors slammed shut, cutting her off from the only home she had ever known. Cold night wind bit into Viera's skin as she stumbled through the snow-laced forest. The guards had taken her cloak and most of her supplies. Only the clothes on her back and a thin wool scarf remained. Every step jarred her aching body. It wasn't just grief, it was the raw emptiness where her child should have been. The healers had called it an accident of the womb, but Viera knew better. The stress of trying to keep the pack united, of sensing Kale's growing distance, had poisoned her from within. As dawn broke, she sank to her knees beside a stream, dipping her cracked hands into the icy water. Her reflection was a ghost, pale skin, dark circles under haunted eyes, hair tangled and dull. Once, she had been the envy of the other she-wolves. Now she barely recognized herself. You should keep moving, she told her reflection. Before night falls again. But where would she go? She had no family left. Her mother had died when she was a child, and her father had perished in the northern skirmishes. The few allies she had in Blackstone would risk exile themselves if they helped her. A branch cracked nearby. Viera tensed, scanning the trees. Her wolf, still battered from grief, stirred faintly, warning her. She wasn't alone. She forced herself to stand, ignoring the burn in her legs. Who's there? Only silence answered her. The wind moved through the trees, carrying scents she couldn't quite place. After a while, she pressed on, hunger twisting her belly like a blade. By dusk, exhaustion won. She collapsed against an ancient oak, shivering uncontrollably. Sleep came in fits, shadows of the council hall, Kale's turned back, the sharp ache of the severed bond. And always, the weight of her lost child, a grief that rooted deep in her bones. Rourke of the Ironclaw Pack had known 2 things when he rose that morning. The snow would slow his patrol, and Blackstone would likely stir up trouble before spring. He hadn't expected to find a half-dead woman at the border. He paused, taking in the sight, a slender figure slumped against a tree, her dark hair tangled, face drawn with exhaustion. Something in her scent tugged at him, familiar, bittersweet, threaded with old pain. Viera, he murmured. Her eyes fluttered open, clouded with fatigue. Recognition dawned slowly. Rourke, she whispered, voice hoarse. What are you doing here? He frowned. I should ask you that. Why in the goddess's name are you wandering near my lands alone, looking ready to drop dead? She turned away, shame etching lines deeper into her face. They cast me out. He had heard rumors that Blackstone's Luna had lost the heir, but he hadn't truly believed they would exile her. Not after all her years of service. Those bastards, he growled. You shouldn't be out here alone. You'll freeze, or worse. I don't want charity, she whispered. It isn't charity, he snapped. It's common damn sense. Stand up." When she tried, her legs buckled. With a frustrated sigh, Rourke scooped her into his arms. Her head lolled against his chest, too weak to protest. She weighed almost nothing. That bothered him more than he liked. "You've always been stubborn," he muttered as he carried her toward Ironclaw's territory. "Don't make me regret this, Viera." Through half-lidded eyes, she whispered, "I don't deserve your help." "Let me decide that," he said, tightening his hold. The scent of Ironclaw's stronghold, pine resin, ash, and wolf musk, filled Viera's senses when she woke. She lay in a small but warm chamber, furs heaped around her. A low-burning hearth flickered, throwing shadows across the stone walls. Outside, she heard the muffled noise of pack life, voices, the thump of paws, children laughing. The door opened. Rourke entered, a mug in hand. "You're awake," he noted, his gravelly voice softening a fraction. "Drink this." She took it. The broth was hot and rich, easing the raw ache in her throat. "Thank you," she said quietly. Rourke sat opposite her, his gaze steady. "Why didn't you come to me sooner? You had to know Blackstone would turn on you." "I thought I could fix it," she whispered. "I thought Cale still needed me." Rourke's expression darkened. "Cale's a fool. You deserved better." She swallowed, surprised by the heat in his words. "We had years together. I couldn't just abandon him." "Even when he abandoned you," he challenged. Pain sliced through her chest. "It's not that simple." "It is," he said flatly. "You gave everything. He repaid you with exile. My wolves know loyalty. Blackstone only pretends to." Viera stared at the hearth. "Your pack, they won't want me here." "They'll listen to me," he replied. "Besides, most of them barely remember the old rivalries. Times have changed." A knock came at the door. A tall woman with auburn hair entered, eyes assessing. "Alpha, the healer says she'll recover if she rests." "Thank you, Jessa," Rourke said. "And see she eats." Jessa inclined her head, then met Viera's gaze with a curious kindness. "Welcome, Luna, or Viera, if you prefer." "Viera," she murmured. When they left her alone again, Viera curled into the furs, fighting the urge to weep. She was safe, for now, but nothing could fill the emptiness where her child should have been. Yet in Rourke's presence, she had felt something unexpected. Not pity but respect. And that terrified her most of all. Snow fell thick outside, blanketing Ironclaw in quiet. Viera rose from the bed and wrapped herself in a cloak Jessa had left behind. The corridors were dimly lit by torches. She followed the faint sound of voices to a balcony overlooking the courtyard. Rourke stood there alone, arms folded, breath misting in the cold. "You should be resting," he said without turning. "I couldn't sleep," she replied softly. He finally looked at her. His dark hair was dusted with snow, his expression unreadable. "Dreams and memories," she admitted. They stood in silence, watching wolves train below. Viera gathered her courage. "Why did you help me, Rourke? Truly. Do you remember the summit 5 years ago?" he asked. She blinked. "When Blackstone and Ironclaw negotiated territory lines? You defended a border village I claimed," he said. "I hated you for it then. But I respected why you did it. You protected your people, even against your mate's wishes." Viera's breath caught. "That was a lifetime ago." "Not to me," he said, voice low. "I've watched you fight for others, never for yourself. I couldn't let you die out there." Her throat tightened. "And what do you want in return?" "Nothing," he rasped. "You've lost enough." His gaze burned into hers. The cold air between them felt charged, alive. She should have stepped back, but instead she stepped closer. "I don't deserve kindness, Rourke." "Maybe not," he murmured. "But you'll get it anyway." For a moment, the weight of exile, betrayal, and grief pressed too heavy. And in that single fragile moment, Viera leaned into him. His arms came around her, strong and sure. They didn't speak. Words were useless, crushed under the raw truth between them. Two wolves scarred by loyalty and loss. In the quiet of falling snow, Viera let herself rest against his warmth, if only for tonight. Days passed in the quiet routine of Ironclaw. Viera woke each morning to the scent of wood smoke and fresh bread. She ate at the long table beside warriors and healers who tried, awkwardly at first, to include her in small talk. Jessa, the auburn-haired beta female, became her bridge to this new world. Patient but firm, Jessa coaxed Viera to join in chores, even if just folding cloths or tending the injured. "You're stronger than you look," Jessa remarked one morning, as Viera carefully wrapped a young hunter's bandaged wrist. Viera offered a small smile. "I've had practice." Jessa paused, her gaze softening. "Blackstone's loss was Ironclaw's gain. Remember that." At night, Viera sometimes found herself wandering the halls, unable to sleep. More often than not, she'd find Rourke awake, sitting by the hearth in the hall, maps spread before him. One night, she stopped at the doorway, uncertain. "You might as well come in," Rourke said without looking up. "You've been hovering there for half a minute." Caught, Viera stepped closer. "Couldn't sleep." "Neither could I," he admitted. He traced a border line on the map. "I'm thinking of moving scouts north before the thaw. Too many rumors of rogues gathering." "Kale's rogues?" she asked, voice careful. "Possibly," he said. "Possibly someone worse." She lowered her eyes. "I'm sorry my presence brings your pack danger." Rourke's gaze lifted, sharp and unwavering. "Don't blame yourself for their choices. You didn't ask for this." "Perhaps," she murmured, but guilt still lay heavy in her chest. Rourke leaned back, folding his arms. "My wolves have accepted you faster than you realize. They respect strength, and they've seen yours." Viera hesitated, feeling warmth at the quiet praise. "Even if I've lost everything?" "Especially then," he said softly. The hearth crackled between them, throwing shifting gold light across his features. For a heartbeat, she wondered what might happen if she stepped closer. But before she could act, footsteps echoed outside and the spell broke. "Get some rest, Viera," he murmured. "Tomorrow, Jessa wants you to help in the nursery." She nodded, heart pounding strangely. "Good night, Rourke." "Good night." She left, the scent of pine smoke and him lingering behind her. Morning brought soft sunlight on frost-glazed windows. Viera spent it in the nursery, helping Jessa calm the younger pups. One little girl, red-cheeked and stubborn, refused to take her medicine. Viera knelt beside her. "What's your name?" "Anwen," the pup muttered. "Anwen, do you know what helps me when I have to drink something nasty?" The girl shook her head, wide-eyed. "I count to 3, Viera whispered, conspiratorial. 1, 2, 3, then it's over." Together, they did it. Anwen grimaced, gulped, and then blinked in surprise. "You did it," Viera said, smiling. Anwen's shy grin made something twist warmly in Viera's chest, a feeling half forgotten, like sunlight after a long winter. Afterward, Jessa clapped her on the shoulder. "You have a gift, you know." "I used to hope," Viera said quietly, "that I'd raise my own child one day." Jessa's expression softened. "That hope doesn't have to die, Viera." But Viera turned away, unable to answer. That evening, she joined Rourke and his inner circle in the council chamber. Maps lay across the table. Warriors stood nearby, alert. Scouts saw movement near the southern border, a dark-haired male reported. "Not Blackstone colors," Rourke said, "but organized. Keep patrols doubled." His gaze flicked to Viera. "You've seen Kale's tactics. If he meant to send rogues, what would he do?" She inhaled, surprised he asked. "He'd strike while your focus is north. Probably near the trade road where your supply lines are weakest." Rourke nodded slowly. "We'll adjust our patrols accordingly." When the meeting ended, she lingered. "Thank you for trusting my judgment." Rourke's voice dropped. "Why wouldn't I? You know how to think like an alpha, Viera. You always did." For a moment, the words balanced between them like something fragile and dangerous. But then, duty called him elsewhere, and she watched him go, heart beating too fast. The snow thickened that night, muffling every sound. Viera couldn't sleep. The old nightmares returned. The council's condemnation, the cold eyes of Kale, the weight of her empty womb. She left her chamber, padding barefoot through the silent hall. The hearth still burned in the main hall, and Rourke was there again, nursing a mug of something dark. "You're restless tonight," he said, voice gentler than usual. "So are you," she replied. He offered the mug. She took it, warmth seeping into her fingers. "It helps," he said. "Some nights, at least." They sat side by side on the bench, neither speaking. The silence felt strangely comforting, not heavy. Finally, she whispered, "Do you ever wonder if the moon made a mistake? Choosing you, me, all of us?" "Every day," he admitted. "But then I remember, we aren't chosen for our perfection, only for what we might yet become." Viera turned, searching his face. "And what do you see in me, Rourke?" "Truly." His jaw tightened. "A woman who refused to break, even when the world demanded it. A Luna in all but name." Her breath caught. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't what?" "Don't make me hope again." His hand brushed hers, rough and warm. "Maybe hope is exactly what you need, Viera." Tears pricked her eyes. Before she could think, she leaned closer. His scent, pine and smoke, wrapped around her, grounding and tempting all at once. When their lips met, it wasn't gentle. It was desperate, raw, a collision of grief and longing. His hand tangled in her hair, her fingers clutched his shirt. When they parted, breathless, neither spoke. Words felt too dangerous. Instead, they found each other again, losing themselves in the quiet dark as the snow fell heavy outside. Morning brought pale sunlight through frost-laced windows. Viera woke tangled in Rourke's furs, her body aching pleasantly, her heart terrified. He was already awake, propped on one elbow, studying her face. "I should go," she whispered. "Go where?" His voice was quiet. "You belong here." "I don't," she protested, shame burning. "Last night, it shouldn't have happened." "Maybe," he murmured. "But I don't regret it." She looked away. "I'm not yours, Rourke." "And yet, you were in my arms," he said softly. The words made her chest tighten painfully. She gathered her clothes and fled, ignoring the ache in her heart. Days passed. She buried herself in work, helping Jessa, tending the young, avoiding Rourke's gaze. But something felt wrong. A persistent nausea in the mornings, a strange flutter in her lower belly. One morning, as she swept the nursery floor, a dizzy wave overcame her. She stumbled, gripping a chair. Jessa caught her. "Viera, what's wrong?" I don't know," she gasped. Jessa's eyes narrowed, then widened. "When was your last cycle?" Viera's breath caught. It hasn't come." "You need the healer," Jessa said firmly. Viera shook her head, panic rising. "No, please. Just give me a moment." But the truth burned in her mind, undeniable, something impossible. Something she had believed lost forever. Viera stood at the edge of the forest, the wind cold on her face. The healer's words echoed in her skull. "You're with child." Impossible. The last time she had conceived, it had ended in heartbreak, and the healers had sworn she would never carry again. Yet here she was, and she knew whose child it must be. Footsteps approached behind her. She didn't turn, she recognized his scent. "Viera," Rourke said softly. "What did the healer say?" She couldn't speak, throat tight. "Look at me," he urged. Slowly, she turned. Tears burned her eyes. "I'm pregnant, Rourke." For a heartbeat, his face went blank with shock. Then something fierce, almost luminous, kindled in his eyes. "Are you certain?" She nodded, voice shaking. "I don't understand how. They told me, after I lost the last child, they told me I couldn't." He stepped closer, hands hovering as if afraid to touch her. "This child, it's mine, isn't it?" "Yes," she whispered. Rourke exhaled shakily, closing his eyes. When he opened them again, his voice was hoarse. "Then we protect them, Viera. Both of you." She swallowed. "What will your pack say? What if they think I trapped you?" "Let them," he said, jaw tightening. "They'll see the truth soon enough." "And what if I lose this child too?" she whispered, voice breaking. I couldn't bear it again. His hands cupped her face, rough thumbs brushing her tears. "Then I'll bear it with you. You're not alone, Viera. Not anymore." For the first time since exile, the weight on her heart felt lighter. Terrifying, yes, but threaded with fragile hope. And as Rourke drew her gently against his chest, she let herself believe, just for that moment, that a second chance might truly be possible. The morning after the healer confirmed her pregnancy, Viera couldn't bring herself to leave her room. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her hands until her knuckles ached. She wasn't afraid of the child. Goddess knew she'd wanted this more than anything. She was afraid of what it meant. The scrutiny, the old scars reopening, the whispers she could already imagine. A knock came at the door. "Viera?" It was Jessa, voice low. "May I come in?" She hesitated, then murmured, "Yes." Jessa entered, carrying a cup of warm broth. "You need to eat." "I'm not hungry," Viera whispered. "You will be soon enough," Jessa countered gently. "The pups you tended yesterday are already asking why you're hiding." Viera flinched. "They shouldn't see me like this. I'm not fit to be anyone's Luna." Jessa's eyes sharpened. "Don't say that. You are stronger than you think. Strong enough to ruin another pack." Viera shot back, bitterness thick on her tongue. Jessa set the broth down, sat beside her. "Viera, do you truly believe your exile was your fault?" Tears pricked her eyes. "If I'd carried my first child to term, none of this would have happened. Or perhaps," Jessa said quietly, "the fault was Kale's for discarding the woman he vowed to protect, and Blackstone's for measuring worth by womb alone." Viera's breath caught. Jessa continued, softer now. "Whatever happens next, you aren't alone this time. You have Rourke. And you have me." "Thank you," Viera whispered, voice cracking. At last, she lifted the broth to her lips. It tasted of herbs and warmth, and hope she barely dared to feel. Later that day, Rourke called a gathering in the courtyard. Snow drifted from the eaves as Ironclaw's wolves gathered, warriors in furs, elders leaning on canes, young ones clinging to mothers' cloaks. Viera stood beside Jessa, heart pounding. Rourke's voice carried easily over the hush. You've all heard rumors. I'd rather give you truth. He paused, gaze sweeping over them. Viera carries my child. A ripple ran through the crowd, surprise, disbelief, and something like relief from a few. And she will remain under my protection, Rourke continued. Anyone who questions her place here questions my judgment. Anyone who threatens her or the child answers to me. The low murmur subsided, replaced by silence. One warrior, a broad-shouldered male named Garrick, spoke up. Alpha, what of the bloodline? She was Blackstone's Luna. Viera's heart clenched. Rourke's expression hardened. She is no longer theirs, and if the goddess grants me an heir through her, I will not insult her or the child by doubting their worth. Jessa stepped forward, voice cool and certain. And as your beta, I stand beside him. This pack has always judged by strength and loyalty, not scandal. Slowly, heads nodded. The tide shifted. Curiosity replaced suspicion. Viera met Rourke's eyes. In them, she saw quiet defiance and fierce protectiveness. For the first time, she dared to stand taller, letting them see her as she was, not the cast-off of Blackstone, but a woman carrying a future no exile could erase. That evening, Viera tried to find a moment alone with Rourke. She found him in the training yard, stripped to shirt sleeves, sparring with Garrick. His movements were precise and lethal, the wolf in him coiled beneath the surface. When he finally stepped back, breath misting in the cold, he turned to her. You should be resting, he chided, voice gentler now. I needed to speak with you, she admitted. Privately. He dismissed Garrick with a nod. They walked to the edge of the yard, snow crunching underfoot. What is it? Rourke asked. I'm afraid, she confessed. Not just for the child, but for what my old pack might do. Cale knows me too well. His jaw tightened. Let them come. They'll find Ironclaw isn't so easily cowed. It won't just be open attack, she said, voice low. Cale preferred quiet poisons, whispers, rumors, turning hearts before swords. Rourke studied her. And you know his methods. I do, she confirmed. I can help you guard against them, but your pack must trust me first. They will, he promised. Today was only the beginning. She hesitated, then added, and thank you, Rourke, for standing beside me. He touched her cheek, rough thumb brushing her skin. I meant every word, Viera. Their breath mingled in the cold air, and for a moment, she let herself lean into his warmth. Then the wind shifted, carrying a faint, bitter scent she hadn't smelled in months. Blackstone's wolves were closer than she had feared. 2 days later, a messenger arrived at Ironclaw's gate. Viera watched from the steps as Rourke and Jessa met the young wolf, who bore Blackstone's crest, a silver wolf's head on black cloth. The messenger bowed, his eyes flicking nervously to Viera. Alpha Rourke, former Luna Viera. State your business, Rourke ordered. I come bearing a gift, the boy stammered. He unwrapped a bundle, revealing a delicate baby blanket, embroidered with Blackstone's crest. Viera's breath caught. It was the same pattern she had chosen for her lost child. And a message, the boy added, voice thin. No child of Blackstone blood belongs in another's den. The words hung in the cold air, sharp as daggers. Rourke's voice dropped to a dangerous growl. Tell your Alpha, Ironclaw claims what is ours. And if he threatens Viera or the child again, I will answer in blood. The boy paled, bowed again, and fled. Viera's knees nearly buckled. Jessa caught her arm. Easy, she murmured. He knows, Viera whispered, dread coiling in her stomach. Cale knows about the child, and he'll come for them. Rourke stepped closer, voice quiet but iron hard. Let him come. I won't let him take what's mine. His words burned through her fear, steadying her heart. But deep down, Viera knew, Cale wouldn't fight fair. And the true battle might not come with claws and teeth, but with secrets and betrayal. Snow fell thick that night, muffling every sound. Viera couldn't sleep. She sat by the window, watching flakes drift past torchlit walls. The child within her felt impossibly small and precious, a promise she barely dared to believe. The door opened softly. Rourke entered, cloak still dusted with snow. You should be resting, he murmured. So should you, she countered. He crossed to her, kneeling so they were eye level. Talk to me. She drew a shaky breath. Part of me still wants to run. Take the child and disappear before Cale can touch us. And the other part, he asked, gaze steady. She met his eyes. The other part wants to stay. To fight. To claim the place you offered me. Then stay, he urged. Not for me, though Goddess knows I want you, but for yourself. For them. His hand brushed her stomach, gentle and reverent. Tears blurred her sight. I'm so afraid, Rourke. So am I, he admitted softly. But we face it together. She nodded, the decision solidifying in her chest. Then teach me. Help me remember how to fight, not as Blackstone's cast-off, but as Ironclaw's Luna. A flicker of relief and pride crossed his face. Tomorrow, then. We begin. And what will the pack say? She whispered. They'll see your strength soon enough, he promised. And so will Kale. Viera laid her hand over his, feeling the slow, steady beat of hope beneath fear. For the first time, she let herself believe that this child might be born into something stronger than exile, into a love worth defending. The courtyard of Ironclaw was covered in fresh snow when Rourke called Viera to train at dawn. She arrived wrapped in a thick cloak, breath fogging in the cold. Rourke waited with Jessa at his side, along with several warriors whose curious eyes lingered on her belly, still only slightly rounded beneath her layers. You don't have to spar, Rourke began, but Viera shook her head. I do, she insisted. If I'm to be Luna here, it must be by strength, not pity. Jessa's eyes glimmered with approval. Then let's begin. They started with forms, balanced footwork, defensive postures Viera hadn't practiced in months. Her movements were slow, her muscles stiff, but as the morning wore on, something deep inside her stirred awake. Good, Jessa coached. Again, this time faster. Viera's breath came harsh and quick, sweat dampening her temples despite the cold. At last she paused, hand pressed to her stomach. Rourke stepped closer, worry in his gaze. I'm fine, she reassured, voice rough. Just winded. He studied her, then gave a short nod. Then rest. You've done enough for today. As they walked back to the hall, Viera spoke softly. The others watched me. Some looked doubtful. They will for now, Rourke admitted. But let them see you try, fall, and rise again. Wolves respect what's earned. She met his gaze, finding quiet certainty there. Then I'll earn it. His expression softened. I never doubted that. That night, after the pack shared supper, Viera lingered by the hearth. She rubbed slow circles over her belly, feeling the faintest flutter inside, a promise that quickened her pulse. Rourke joined her, carrying 2 mugs of steaming herbal tea. For you, he said. Thank you, she murmured, accepting it. They sat in silence for a moment, the flames painting shadows on stone walls. Jessa told me you once refused an arranged mating, Viera said, curiosity and gratitude tangled in her voice. Rourke raised a brow. She talks too much. And you never told me, she pressed gently. He exhaled, staring into the fire. It was before I became Alpha. The council wanted me to bond with a distant cousin of the Frostfangs, secure an alliance. She was clever, brave, but she wasn't my choice. What happened? She asked softly. I told the council I'd rather lead alone than mate for politics, he said. They were furious. But in time, they saw it was the right decision. Viera studied him, heart twisting. And now, he said, voice roughening, I find myself wanting something, not for duty. For myself. Their eyes met, heat pooling between them. Rourke, she whispered, fear and longing tangled. What if I disappoint you too? His hand found hers, calloused and warm. You couldn't, he said quietly, because you've never pretended to be anything but yourself. She closed her eyes, letting his words settle into the hollow places exile had carved. Morning brought smoke and iron on the wind. Viera was in the nursery with Jessa when the alarm bells rang, a short, sharp clang that tightened every wolf's spine. Rourke met them in the courtyard, face carved from stone. Garrick stood beside him, expression grim. What happened? Viera demanded. A patrol found 3 of ours near the southern border, Garrick said, voice heavy. Alive but beaten, left with a message. Viera's stomach twisted. What message? Rourke's jaw flexed. Carved into a tree. Blackstone reclaims its blood. Her breath caught. They mean the child. Rourke nodded once. They're testing us, trying to see if fear will break us from within. Jessa's gaze sharpened. They forget Ironclaw isn't ruled by fear. But they'll keep pushing, Viera said, voice shaking but steady. Kale won't stop until he thinks he's broken my will, or yours. Rourke placed a hand on her shoulder, grounding her. Then let him learn, we won't break. In that shared resolve, Viera felt something shift, the old shame of exile thinning, replaced by quiet, growing defiance. That night, Viera gathered her courage and sought out the wolves who had been beaten. She found them in the healer's hall, 3 young warriors, bandaged and bruised, but alive. Their eyes widened as she entered. I wanted to see you, she said softly, to thank you for enduring what was meant for me. The youngest, a wiry male with a cut along his cheek, spoke first. We failed, Luna. They caught us off guard. Viera shook her head. No. You came back alive, and you brought a warning. That's strength. The warriors exchanged glances. Slowly, the young male lowered his gaze in respect. Then we'll stand with you, Luna. Whatever comes. Her heart lifted, shaky but true. And I'll stand with you. As she turned to leave, Jessa appeared at the door, watching quietly. You're claiming them, Jessa said. Without even trying. I don't know what I'm doing, Viera admitted. But you're doing it anyway, Jessa replied. That's what makes a Luna. Dawn came with heavy clouds, but Ironclaw's courtyard bustled with quiet purpose. Viera stood beside Rourke on the training grounds. Warriors gathered in a wide circle, sparring and practicing forms, eyes occasionally flicking toward their alpha and the woman beside him. Rourke spoke, voice carrying. We do not provoke war, but we will not bow to threats. Blackstone forgets who we are. Garrick barked commands, and the warriors dropped into formation. Viera watched, hand resting over her stomach, feeling a light flutter that brought tears to her eyes. They're fighting for us, she whispered to Rourke. They're fighting with you, he corrected softly. She turned to him. And when the time comes, I'll stand beside you. Not as the cast-off of Blackstone, but as your Luna. Pride and something deeper flared in his gaze. Then let the world see what strength truly looks like. Snowflakes drifted around them, catching in Viera's hair like scattered stars. As the pack moved in unison, she felt the past loosening its hold. The promise of tomorrow, a family, a home, a child born not into shame but into hope, felt real for the first time. And in that moment Viera knew, she had chosen not to flee, not to hide, but to fight. And that choice changed everything. Snow melted from the eaves as spring approached, and Ironclaw prepared for the annual gathering, a time when the entire pack assembled to renew oaths to their Alpha and Luna. This year would be different. Viera had spent days trying to quiet her heart. Each time she stepped into the hall, she felt the weight of eyes on her. Some curious, some wary, but fewer hostile than before. Word of her quiet strength, and her refusal to cower even as Blackstone threatened, had spread. On the eve of the gathering, Rourke found her pacing by the window. You'll wear a path through the stone, he teased, though the softness in his voice belied the words. I'm terrified, she confessed. Of them, he asked. Of failing, she corrected quietly. Of standing there and hearing whispers of cast-out Luna, exiled mother. Rourke stepped closer, gently tipping her chin so she met his gaze. Let them whisper. What matters is what you do after they speak. And if I falter, she whispered. Then you stand again, he murmured. And I'll stand beside you. His certainty steadied her more than any words she might have prepared. As dawn broke, Viera dressed carefully, a deep forest green cloak lined with wolf fur, Ironclaw's colors, not Blackstone's black and silver. Around her neck, Rourke clasped an old Ironclaw crest, the silver chain cool against her skin. Ready, he asked. No, she admitted, breath shaky. He smiled faintly. Good. Only fools walk into battle without fear. Together, they stepped into the morning light. Hundreds gathered in the clearing outside Ironclaw's stronghold. Warriors in boiled leather, hunters in fur, children sitting on barrels or swinging legs from carts. Rourke stepped forward first, voice resonant. Today we renew our oaths. Not to me alone, but to what Ironclaw stands for, loyalty, strength, and defiance against those who threaten our kin. Then he turned to her. Viera? Her heart thundered. For a heartbeat, she felt her tongue seize in fear. Then she looked past the staring faces, to Anwen, the little girl from the nursery, who watched her with quiet hope. To the young warriors who had survived Blackstone's ambush, standing straighter because of her words. To Jessa, arms folded, nodding encouragement. Viera drew breath. I came here as a woman cast out, she began, voice low but steady. Blackstone saw weakness where they should have seen grief. They forgot that wolves are strongest not when they never fall, but when they rise again. A ripple of murmured agreement spread. I am not your blood, she continued, hand resting over her growing belly. But I will fight for you as fiercely as I once fought for those who turned me away. And this child I carry, they will be Ironclaws not by birth alone, but by choice. A pause. I don't ask for your pity, she finished, voice rough. Only your faith, and in return, I swear my loyalty to you as Luna, mate and mother. Silence hung heavy. Then, slowly, Garrick stepped forward, fist over his heart. We stand with you, Luna. Others followed, a ripple of hands to hearts, heads bowed. Rourke's gaze met hers, pride shining in his eyes. In that moment, Viera felt it, not as something given but something earned. The gathering ended in celebration, food, dancing, laughter that Viera hadn't heard in Ironclaw's halls since winter's start. But before dawn, the warning bell clanged. Viera jolted awake, hand flying to her belly. Rourke was already by the door, muscles taut. "Stay here," he ordered. "No," she insisted, throwing on her cloak. "If they're attacking, I need to see." Outside, wolves gathered at the southern wall. Garrick pointed to the horizon, dark coils of smoke rising beyond the trees. "A storage hut," Garrick reported. "Small, deliberate, not random." Rourke's jaw flexed. "A message." Viera stepped closer. "Cale is probing, testing how quickly we respond. And whether we keep our Luna behind walls," Jessa added, voice cool. Rourke hesitated. His gaze met Viera's. "You shouldn't be here." "I'm not hiding," she said quietly. "If you show fear now, he'll know he's winning." Reluctantly, he nodded. Together, they rode to the edge of Ironclaw's territory. Flames licked a storage hut skeleton, sending smoke curling into pale dawn. Garrick sniffed the air. Blackstone scent. Fresh. Viera's fingers curled into fists. "They want me to beg to go back, to save you from their wrath." Rourke's voice dropped, low and fierce. "That will never happen." The fire burned low, leaving charred beams and acrid smoke. They turned back toward Ironclaw's gates, but in Viera's heart, a new fire caught. Not fear, but fury. That evening, Rourke convened Ironclaw's council. Jessa, Garrick, 3 elders whose loyalty lay between caution and aggression. In the council chamber, stone walls flickered with torchlight. Viera stood beside Rourke, silent but present. "They're baiting us," Garrick growled. "Pushing until we strike first." "And if we do," warned Elder Marn, his beard streaked with gray, "we risk open war. The cost would be blood we may not be ready to spill." "They burned our stores," Jessa snapped. "What next?" "Our young." Viera drew breath. "Cale won't stop with fire. His strength isn't only in blades, but in poison, words, and spies." The elders shifted, surprised to hear her speak. "You know his mind," Rourke said. "What would you do?" She hesitated, then answered, voice steady. "Strength outside, vigilance within. Double the patrols, yes, but also watch for whispers. Those who might doubt my place here. That's where Cale will strike." "And if he sends an envoy?" asked Elder Marn. "I face him," she said, surprising herself. "Not as his discarded Luna, but as Ironclaw's." A tense silence. Then Jessa's lips curved faintly. "Agreed." Rourke looked at her, something unspoken passing between them. Respect, trust, and fear for what might come. But for the first time, the council did not speak over her. They listened. And that, Viera realized, was power earned, not given. That night, the wind swept clear skies, revealing a full moon silvering Ironclaw's courtyard. Viera walked the battlements, cloak wrapped around her shoulders. Below, the pack moved like shadows, patrols changing shifts, guards scanning the trees. Rourke joined her, silent beside her until the moon climbed higher. "You were right," he murmured. "They listened." "I wasn't sure they would," she confessed. "They saw what I see," he said softly. "Strength shaped by fire." She turned to him. "And if Cale comes himself? Then he'll see what he threw away," Rourke said, voice rough. A woman worth more than any alpha who couldn't see past his own pride. Emotion caught in her throat. "I don't know what tomorrow brings, Rourke." "None of us do," he admitted. "But tonight, under this moon, you're here. You're mine. And that's enough." She leaned into him, feeling his heartbeat steady against hers. Far beyond Ironclaw's walls, darkness gathered, but in this moment, under a sky they both claimed, hope felt real. Fragile, stubborn, but alive. And Viera knew. Exile had forged something Blackstone could never destroy. A Luna reborn, not by blood, but by choice. The morning dawned steel-gray, wind rattling the wooden shutters of Ironclaw's great hall. Word spread quickly. Blackstone's envoy had been spotted crossing the southern border. Viera stood beside Rourke in the courtyard, cloak pulled tight against the cold. Her heart thudded with a rhythm both familiar and foreign, a dread she thought she'd buried. A lone rider approached, bearing Blackstone's silver wolf crest. The envoy dismounted, a young male, sharp-featured, dark hair bound at his neck. His gaze landed on Viera first, flickering with something between pity and calculation. "Alpha Rourke," he began, voice smooth as river stone. "And former Luna Viera." Rourke's stance was unmoving. "Speak your piece." The envoy inclined his head. "Alpha Cale offers terms. Return Viera to Blackstone custody, and he guarantees peace. The child she carries belongs to Blackstone by blood." Viera stiffened, rage flaring behind her ribs. Rourke's voice dropped to a dangerous calm. You think to claim what you discarded? She was never formally released, the envoy countered, eyes cold. By Blackstone law, she remains bound to Alpha Kale. Viera stepped forward, cloak swirling. Kale's law died for me the moment he cast me aside. I choose where I stand, and it is not with him. The envoy's jaw twitched. Then you choose war. Rourke's eyes narrowed. We don't fear war, pup. But if your Alpha wants it, he'll pay in blood. The envoy paled, bowed stiffly, and turned to leave. But before mounting, he cast Viera a last glance. Your stubbornness dooms them all. She met his stare without flinching. We'll see who's doomed in the end. As he rode into the pines, silence settled heavy around them. They'll come, Garrick muttered. And we'll be ready, Rourke said, voice iron strong. Viera felt her fear tighten, then transform, hardening into resolve. Days passed in tense preparation. Patrols doubled, scouts ranged further. The forge burned night and day, sharpening blades and reforging old ones. Viera walked the training yard daily, no longer just as observer. Her belly had grown, but her spirit burned hotter. Jessa sparred with her gently, teaching grips and disarms that relied on leverage rather than brute strength. One cold morning, sweat soaking her tunic, Viera lost her balance, falling hard on packed earth. Gasps rippled around the yard. She lay still, breath ragged, hand over her stomach. Are you hurt? Jessa asked, dropping to her knees. Viera shook her head, forcing breath back into her lungs. No, just winded. Rourke was there in seconds, worry etched deep. You shouldn't push so hard. She met his gaze, voice low but steady. If I don't, how will they believe I belong at your side when Blackstone comes? His expression softened, pride flickering behind his fear. Then train smarter, he urged. Not harder. She nodded, letting him help her up. I won't break, she murmured. I know, he said, hand lingering over hers. But that child needs you whole. Their eyes locked, worry, love, and unspoken promise passing silently. Around them, Ironclaw's wolves watched not just an Alpha and his mate, but a Luna who refused to be sheltered, even when carrying new life. And slowly, what had begun as wary respect deepened into something stronger. Night brought uneasy sleep. Dreams of Blackstone's cold halls haunted Viera, the council's cold eyes, Kale's smirk as they cast her out. She woke gasping, sweat slick on her skin despite the cold. Rourke stirred beside her, pulling her gently against his chest. Bad dream, he murmured. Memories, she whispered. I keep hearing Kale's voice, telling me I was only worth what I could give him. Rourke's hand traced slow circles on her back. You were worth everything without giving him anything. Tears prickled her eyes. Will our child grow to hate me for what I was? No, he said firmly. They'll know you as the Luna who chose to fight, even when fear said run. And if I'm not enough, she whispered. He cupped her face, forcing her to meet his gaze. Then we fall together and rise together. You are not alone anymore, Viera. She closed her eyes, pressing her forehead to his. Promise me that if anything happens, you'll protect them, even from my past. I promise, he whispered. And nothing will take you from me willingly. They lay in silence, breath sinking, as moonlight traced silver lines across the stone walls. Outside, Ironclaw braced for war. Inside, two hearts dared to hope, despite all that had come before. At dawn, the council gathered in the great hall. Garrick, Jessa, the elders, all sat in a semicircle of carved chairs. Viera stood beside Rourke, cloak hiding the curve of her belly. Elder Marn spoke first. Blackstone forces gather at our border. Scouts report at least 50 warriors, perhaps more. More than our numbers, Garrick muttered, brow furrowed. But not stronger, Jessa countered. The room buzzed with low arguments, risk, defense, strategy. At last, Rourke turned to Viera. Kale may offer terms again, publicly this time, to divide us. And you think they'll listen? She asked quietly. They might if you speak, he said. But only if you choose to stand before them as Ironclaw's Luna, not Blackstone's cast-off. A heavy silence. Viera's chest tightened. She saw the choice clearly. Step forward and risk rejection, or stay silent and watch doubt poison the pack from within. I'll speak, she said, voice hoarse but sure. Jessa's eyes softened. Then do not speak to convince them you belong, she advised. Speak as though you already do. Viera met Rourke's gaze, seeing pride there. When? Tomorrow, he said. At dawn, before the pack, and before Kale's envoy, if he dares approach again. She swallowed hard. Then tomorrow it is. As the council dispersed, she felt the weight settle. But deeper, under fear, pulsed something steadier. Not for herself alone, but for the child she carried. For Rourke. And for Ironclaw. The sun broke over Ironclaw's walls, pale and cold. Wolves gathered in the courtyard. Warriors in leather, hunters clutching spears, elders leaning on canes. Children huddled by mothers' sides. At the gate, a single figure approached, Cale's envoy again, smug and calm. Rourke stood tall but silent. This was Viera's moment. She stepped forward, cloak brushing snow, heart beating loud in her ears. "Blackstone sends threats," she began, voice carrying further than she'd thought possible. "But it forgets why I was cast out, for failing to carry a child to term. They called me unworthy." The envoy's smirk faded. "And yet," she continued, hand resting over her belly, "life blooms in me now, not by force but by choice. Not as Blackstone's, but as Ironclaw's." Murmurs spread among the pack, like wind rustling pine. "You threaten war," she said, gaze locking on the envoy. "But know this, you will not reclaim what you threw away. This child will never call Blackstone home. And I will not bow again." The envoy opened his mouth, but no words came. Rourke stepped forward then, voice cold as steel. "Tell your Alpha, if he wants her, he'll have to cross Ironclaw's walls. And if he does, he won't leave alive." The envoy paled, turned, and fled into the trees. The courtyard held still silence. Then Garrick lifted a fist to his heart. One by one others followed, heads bowing. Viera exhaled shakily. Her knees threatened to buckle, but Rourke's hand closed over hers, steady and warm. "You did it," he whispered. "No," she corrected softly. "We did." Above them, the morning sky stretched wide and cold, but inside Viera warmth bloomed. For the first time, truly, she felt it. Not Blackstone's cast-off, but Ironclaw's Luna. Snow fell thick, and wet the morning Cale arrived. Ironclaw's guards had barely sounded the horn before his black-cloaked party appeared at the southern gate. Wolves in Blackstone livery, silver wolf heads on black, flanked him, eyes cold and hard. Cale himself rode at the front, his presence unchanged by months apart, tall, dark-eyed, expression carved from arrogance and quiet disdain. But Viera saw it now, clearer than before, the brittleness under his pride. Rourke stood at Ironclaw's gates, Viera beside him. Garrick and Jessa flanked them, warriors at the ready. The air shimmered with tension. Cale dismounted, boots crunching on frozen ground. His gaze swept over the walls, then settled on Viera. His lip curled faintly. "Viera," he drawled. "You look healthier." She didn't flinch. "And you look exactly the same, Cale. Still sending others to speak, until you must do it yourself." Amusement flickered, quickly gone. "I've come to end this peacefully. Return to Blackstone, and no more blood needs spilling." Rourke's growl rumbled low. "You forget yourself. You stand at Ironclaw's gates, making demands." "I claim only what's mine," Cale retorted, his gaze sliding to her belly. "You carry Blackstone blood." Viera stepped forward, cloak sweeping back to reveal the gentle curve beneath her tunic. "No, Cale. This child was never yours, and neither was I, not truly." "Don't be foolish," he snapped, anger cracking through calm. "You know what's at stake." "I know exactly what's at stake," she shot back. "And it isn't your pride." The wolves of Ironclaw braced, tension humming like a drawn bow. Cale's eyes narrowed. "Then you force my hand." Rourke's voice dropped to lethal quiet. "Try." For a moment, all was still. Then Cale turned sharply. "We leave for now," he hissed. "But this isn't over." As Blackstone's party vanished into the trees, Viera exhaled shakily. "He'll come back," she murmured. "Yes," Rourke said, voice tight. "And next time, he won't bring words." Ironclaw's walls became a hive of movement. Smiths hammered iron until sparks danced on stone. Hunters laid traps in hidden paths. Scouts moved like ghosts beyond the border, eyes always turned south. In the great hall, maps lay unrolled over the table. Rourke traced border lines with a scarred finger, voice calm but clipped. "Garrick, double patrols here," he ordered. "Jessa, keep a small force ready near the eastern ridge, if they circle around." "And me?" Viera asked, quiet but steady. Rourke hesitated, then met her gaze. "You stay in the stronghold." "I won't," she said softly but firmly. "I know Blackstone better than any here. You need me." "She's right," Jessa added. "If Cale tries anything clever, she'll see it first." Rourke's jaw tightened. "I won't risk you or the child." "And I won't hide," she replied. "Not anymore." His shoulders slumped slightly. "Then stay close to me," he murmured. "Promise me that." "I promise," she said. Later, when the council dispersed, Rourke drew her aside, voice rough. "I hate this. Every instinct says to keep you far from danger. And every instinct in me says to stand beside you, she whispered. If we lose, let it be fighting together. His hand found hers, squeezing tight. Then together, he agreed, though fear still shadowed his eyes. In the silence that followed, Viera realized something. Fear hadn't vanished, but it no longer ruled her. Night fell heavy and cold. In the courtyard, warriors sat sharpening blades, oiling armor, or speaking in quiet voices. Viera walked among them, offering words, a hand on a shoulder, a nod of gratitude. Some had once doubted her, but now they looked to her as Luna, eyes steady and resolute. Near the walls, Anwin, the pup from the nursery, ran up, clutching a wooden carving of a wolf. For you, Luna, she whispered. Viera knelt carefully, taking it. Thank you, little one. Anwin's eyes were big and solemn. Will you be scared? Yes, Viera admitted softly. But brave doesn't mean not scared. It means standing even when we are. Anwin nodded, small brow furrowed in understanding. Later, Viera returned to her chambers. Rourke sat by the fire, head bowed, turning something over in his hands, a silver ring, old and worn. It belonged to my mother, he murmured as she approached. She wore it as Luna until the day she died. He rose, slipping it gently onto Viera's finger. It fit snugly, warm from his hand. Rourke, she began, voice catching. I should have given it sooner, he said. But tomorrow is uncertain. And if anything happens... Don't, she interrupted, voice shaking. Nothing will happen. We fight. We win. His arms wrapped around her, breath warm against her hair. Then let it be so, he whispered. They stood there, hearts pounding in quiet unity, as snow fell outside like silent blessings. Dawn broke red and cold. Scouts brought word. Blackstone moved through the southern pines, 50 maybe more. At their head rode Cale, cloak billowing, face as cold as the frost. Ironclaw's warriors formed ranks behind the walls. Garrick barked orders. Jessa moved among them, steady as steel. Viera stood beside Rourke atop the battlements, eyes fixed on the black shapes threading between trees. Ready? Rourke asked, voice low. No, she whispered. But we do it anyway. Cale halted just beyond bowshot, voice rising over the clearing. Last chance, Viera. Come now, and Ironclaw lives. She stepped forward, cloak swirling. No. Cale's eyes narrowed, rage shadowing them. Then watch them fall. He raised his hand, and Blackstone surged forward. Ironclaw met them at the walls, arrows singing death. Swords clashed, shields splintered. Wolves shifted mid-charge, fur bristling, claws tearing snow and earth. Viera felt the old fear coil, but forced her voice to rise. Hold the line. Jessa fought near the gates, blades flashing. Garrick wrestled a Blackstone warrior to the ground, ending him with a single thrust. Rourke's wolf leapt from the battlements, a streak of gray fury slamming into Blackstone's front line. Viera's eyes caught Cale's as he advanced, sword drawn. Memory burned, his contempt, his cold dismissal. But now she saw his fear, too. I am not yours, she shouted, voice raw. And I never was. Cale pushed forward, cutting through Ironclaw warriors. Rourke moved to intercept, but Viera shouted, No, let him come. Cale stalked toward her, snow crunching under his boots, sword dripping red. You ruined everything, he hissed. You were meant to give me heirs to kneel. I was never yours to kneel, she spat. His gaze flicked to her belly. Then I'll take what's mine another way. He lunged. But Viera moved, not fast, but with purpose. Training with Jessa had taught her more than strength. It had taught her balance, timing. She ducked, letting Cale's blade slice air. As he stumbled past, she slammed the pommel of her dagger into the back of his head. He staggered, turning eyes wild. You think you can fight me? I don't think, she said. I know. Cale raised his sword, but before he could strike again, Rourke's wolf crashed into him, sending him sprawling onto the snow. Cale rose, gasping, facing both of them. It doesn't matter, he roared. I made you. No, Viera said, stepping forward, voice clear. You broke me, but Ironclaw made me whole. Cale charged, fury blind. But Rourke moved first, sword flashing, knocking Cale's blade aside. And Viera, dagger trembling in hand, stepped in close, meeting Cale's gaze one last time before driving steel into his side. He gasped, eyes wide, breath misting in the cold. Viera? She held his stare, steady. Goodbye, Cale. His knees buckled. He fell, snow swallowing him, black cloak spreading like spilled ink. All around them, the sounds of battle slowed. Blackstone's warriors faltered, seeing their alpha fall. Ironclaw pressed forward, driving them back beyond the pines. At last, silence. Rourke turned to her, chest heaving. It's over. Viera's hand went to her belly. The child kicked, alive, strong. Yes, she whispered, tears blurring her sight. It's over. And under gray skies, Ironclaw stood unbroken, and for the first time, so did she. Snow fell soft and steady over the blood-stained earth. The pines whispered, wind carrying the scent of iron and ash away. Ironclaw's warriors moved slowly among the fallen, tending the wounded, gathering the dead. The courtyard was heavy with silence, broken only by the soft cries of mourning and the scrape of shovels against frozen ground. Viera stood beside Rourke, exhaustion sinking into her bones. Her cloak hung heavy with melting snow, the dagger she'd used to strike Cale still sheathed at her hip, its weight a constant reminder. She saw Anwen clinging to her mother's hand, wide eyes tracking every movement. The little girl's gaze found Viera, and to her surprise, the child lifted her chin, small hand pressed over her heart. Viera returned the gesture, throat tightening. Even the youngest had learned what it meant to stand. Rourke's voice was low beside her. They're looking to you now. Not for orders, but for hope. She swallowed, words catching in her chest. And if I don't have it, then we find it together, he murmured. Garrick approached, bandage at his temple, blood staining his leathers. Losses were lighter than we feared, Alpha, he reported. Blackstone's warriors fled once Cale fell. And they're dead? Rourke asked. They left them, Garrick said, voice flat. No honor among them, even for their own. Viera's hand drifted to her belly, feeling a gentle kick. Then let us show them how Ironclaw honors its fallen, she said quietly. The day ended with a pyre, flames rising to meet the gray sky, smoke twisting into the pines. Wolves stood shoulder to shoulder, heads bowed, not broken but changed. And as the embers cooled, Viera knew the battle had ended, but the work of healing had just begun. The next morning dawned pale gold, melting frost on Ironclaw's walls. In the great hall, Rourke met with Garrick and Jessa, plans laid out on the table. Blackstone had fallen into chaos without Cale. Scouts brought word of rival claimants already tearing at each other. They'll be too busy fighting themselves to trouble us soon, Garrick predicted. But we can't grow complacent, Jessa warned. A new alpha could rise, hungry for conquest. Rourke nodded. Then we strengthen what's ours first. Viera listened quietly, hands resting over her belly. The child shifted, a small, stubborn reminder of life pushing forward. After the meeting, she wandered the courtyard. The forge rang with the steady hammer of repairs. Children swept melted snow from the walkways, and women patched torn cloaks by the fire. She paused by the nursery, watching Anwen help gather kindling. The little girl noticed her and ran over. Luna, will there be more fighting? Viera knelt carefully, cloak brushing the snow-damp stones. I hope not, she said softly. But if there is, we'll stand together again. Anwen's brow furrowed. Were you scared? Yes, Viera admitted. But I wasn't alone, and that made me brave. The child's small hand touched hers. Then I'll be brave too. Viera's chest tightened. That's all anyone can ask, she whispered. As Anwen skipped away, Jessa appeared, arms folded. They see you, she remarked. Not as a symbol, but as their Luna. I still feel like that woman cast out, Viera confessed. Jessa shook her head. Then remember this. Courage isn't what you feel, it's what you do anyway. Days turned into a week of rebuilding. Ironclaw's gates were reinforced, watchtowers repaired, and new scouts trained to guard the borders. In the council chamber, Viera sat beside Rourke as the elders debated trade with a neighboring pack. Elder Marn's voice droned on about winter stores and barter. Viera's gaze drifted across the table, catching Jessa's eyes. The other woman lifted an eyebrow, amusement flickering behind the iron composure. Finally, Viera spoke. Instead of waiting for trade offers, why not send an envoy? Show them Ironclaw stands stronger, not weaker, after what happened. Marn's eyebrows shot up. It's unorthodox for a Luna to lead trade. Perhaps, Viera replied calmly. But Blackstone saw me as a liability. Let Ironclaw's neighbors see me as proof of what's changed. The room fell silent. Garrick hid a small grin. Jessa nodded slightly. Rourke's voice broke the stillness. I agree. Ironclaw's strength isn't only in steel, but in what we show the world. Later, in their chambers, Viera let out a long breath. Did I overstep? No, Rourke said, crossing to her. You led. And they listened. She looked up at him, vulnerability breaking through. And if I fail? Then we learn and try again, he murmured, pressing a kiss to her forehead. That's how we've come this far. She leaned into him, feeling the steady rise and fall of his chest. In his arms, the burden felt lighter, not gone but shared. One morning, Viera woke before dawn, restless. She slipped from their bed and walked the battlements, breath fogging in the cold. Snow clung to the pines below, moonlight turning it to silver. The quiet wrapped around her, pressing old doubts to the surface. She remembered Cale's final words, his belief that he had made her. Some part of that wound still burned. Footsteps approached. Jessa joined her, silent for a time. Couldn't sleep? Jessa asked finally. No, Viera murmured. Some scars run deeper than blades. Jessa's gaze turned sharp. You think you're still marked by him? Viera hesitated. Sometimes. As if what he did will always define me. Then remember this, Jessa said, voice low. Scars don't prove you're broken. They prove you survived. Viera's eyes stung. Do you ever feel the weight of the past? Every dawn, Jessa admitted. But it's lighter when you keep walking forward. Viera exhaled, the cold air biting her lungs. Then I'll keep walking, she whispered. And if you stumble, Jessa added, lips curving faintly, you have all of Ironclaw to catch you. Viera smiled, the tightness in her chest easing. Thank you. Don't thank me, Jessa replied, gaze softening. Just keep fighting. They stood together, side by side, watching dawn paint pale gold over the snow. Spring finally loosened winter's grip. Snow retreated from the hills, streams swelled with meltwater. Life stirred, green shoots pushing through cold earth. Ironclaw's courtyard filled as the pack gathered, not for battle, but for ceremony. Rourke stood at the front, clad in dark leather and wolf fur. Beside him, Viera wore a cloak of forest green, the silver ring he'd given her shining on her hand. Her belly, now unmistakable, rested beneath the folds. The carved oak circlet, Ironclaw's Luna crown, lay on a cloth. Generations had worn it, passed from Luna to Luna. Rourke's voice rose, steady and sure. Viera came to us as many come, lost, wounded, seeking refuge. But she stayed as few do, by choosing to fight, to stand, to love. He turned to her. By the will of Ironclaw and the strength you have shown, will you stand as Luna? Viera's breath trembled. I will. Will you protect, guide, and fight for this pack, not as its prisoner, but as its heart? I will, she said again, voice breaking but sure. Rourke lifted the circlet, placing it gently on her head. Then stand, Luna of Ironclaw. Silence hung for a single breath. Then the courtyard erupted in howls, low, rising, rolling across the stones and up into the pines. Viera's heart swelled. She saw Anwin watching, smiling wide. Garrick nodding approval. Jessa, arms folded, gaze proud. And beside her Rourke, hers. Tears blurred her sight. Not of grief, but of something she once thought she'd lost, belonging. She had fallen. She had risen. And now, crowned not because of what she had been, but because of what she chose to become. Late spring brought softer winds, buds unfurling on the pines, and the scent of wet earth. But with the season came a new weight. Viera's belly had grown heavy, each step slower, her breath catching more often than she dared admit. The pack watched her with quiet care. Children offered small bunches of flowers. Elders paused to murmur blessings. Even Garrick softened his gruff words, while Jessa stayed always near, a silent shadow. One warm evening, Viera sat in the courtyard, cloak spread around her. Rourke joined her, lowering himself with a quiet grunt. How are you? He asked, voice low. Large, she muttered, a wry smile tugging at her lips. Tired. Terrified. Of the birth, he asked gently. She nodded, throat tight. What if I fail again? What if? He reached for her hand, calloused fingers closing over hers. We are not the same people we were then, he said. Whatever comes, we'll face it together. She closed her eyes, letting the warmth of his hand sink into her bones. I want to believe that. Then believe me, he whispered. You've taught me how to hope again. Let me do the same for you. She opened her eyes, finding his gaze steady and sure. For the first time in days, her breath loosened. Together, they sat as dusk deepened, the courtyard glowing gold, hearts beating in quiet rhythm, two souls bracing for what lay ahead. Rain lashed Ironclaw's walls, wind rattling shutters and roaring in the pines. Viera woke with a sharp, twisting pain, breath catching in her throat. Another pain followed, stronger, deeper, unmistakable. She reached for Rourke, hand gripping his arm. It's time, she gasped. His eyes flew open, fear and love warring in his expression. I'll fetch Jessa, he said, voice hoarse. Within minutes, Jessa and the healer, Merrick, arrived. Warm water steamed in a basin, blankets were laid ready. Outside, thunder cracked, the world trembling. Rourke paced, restless. Viera cried out as another contraction racked her, sweat beading her brow despite the cold draft. Jessa knelt beside her, voice calm and strong. Breathe, Luna. You've faced worse pain. Let it come, let it pass. I'm scared, Viera gasped. You're allowed, Jessa said gently. But don't let it hold you. Hours blurred into pain and sweat, the storm outside echoing the storm within her. At one point, Viera opened her eyes to find Rourke beside her, face drawn. I'm here, he whispered, voice breaking. At last, as dawn clawed at the sky, Marek's voice rose above the thunder. Now, Viera. Push. She gathered every scrap of strength, every memory of pain and survival, and bore down with a raw, wordless cry. A moment of silence, then a sharp, fierce wail filled the chamber. Viera sobbed, tears spilling unchecked. Marek wrapped the child in cloth, placing the small bundle in her arms. A boy, the healer announced, voice gentler than she'd ever heard. Rourke's breath caught. He reached out, hand trembling, brushing the downy hair on his son's head. Viera held the child close, heart beating wild and terrified and alive. We did it, she whispered, voice ragged. Yes, Rourke breathed. You did. And as rain eased outside, dawn finally broke, pale and gentle across the stones. The pack gathered in the great hall that evening. Candles flickered, smoke curling toward the rafters. Wolves who had once doubted now waited, eyes fixed on the Alpha and Luna. Viera stood beside Rourke, child in her arms, wrapped in a soft woolen cloth. The baby stirred, small face scrunching before settling back into sleep. Rourke's voice rose, deep and clear. This child was born of hope, of choice, and of love stronger than fear. As Alpha, I name him our heir. He turned to Viera, voice softening. And what name do you choose, Luna? Her gaze swept the hall, lingering on those who had helped her stand again. Garrick, whose loyalty never wavered, Jessa, whose strength had steadied her, and Rourke, who had seen not what she was, but what she could become. His name, she said, voice steady, is Kellen. For courage born of hardship. A murmur of approval rippled through the hall. Garrick nodded, a rare, quiet smile softening his scarred face. Jessa's eyes shone, pride unspoken but clear. Anwen peeked around her mother's skirts, whispering the name to herself as if tasting it. Rourke wrapped an arm around Viera's shoulders. May he carry the strength of Iron Claw, and the heart of his mother, he declared. The wolves raised their hands to their chests, voices rising together in a single, rolling howl, an old song of welcome, of life continuing. Kellen stirred, eyes flickering open for a heartbeat, clear, gray, and new to the world. Viera pressed a kiss to his brow, whispering a promise only he could hear. You will never know exile, only belonging. The weeks that followed blurred into sleepless nights and quiet dawns. Kellen proved loud and stubborn, quick to wail but quick to soothe when held. Rourke learned to hold him, large hands awkward at first, then surer. Sometimes Viera woke to find father and son both asleep in the chair by the fire, peace softening Rourke's sharp features. One morning, Jessa visited, carrying fresh linen. Motherhood suits you, she remarked. Viera snorted. You didn't see me 3 hours ago, she teased. I was near tears over nothing. Then you're doing it right, Jessa said dryly. Caring means feeling it all. They sat by the hearth, Kellen gurgling softly. Viera's gaze drifted to the window, sunlight touching the courtyard stones. I used to think the scars would mark me forever, she admitted quietly. But maybe they just became part of the pattern. Jessa tilted her head. The tapestry isn't beautiful because it has no flaws, she said. It's beautiful because of the threads woven through, pain, survival, love. And you? Viera asked softly. Where do you fit? Jessa hesitated, then answered. At your side, she said. As your guard and your friend. Viera's throat tightened. Then stay, she whispered. I will, Jessa promised. Outside, Anwen ran across the courtyard, laughing, chased by an older boy. Life, Viera thought, didn't stop for scars. It grew around them. And in the quiet warmth of that morning, she let herself believe in that growth. Summer settled over Iron Claw, bringing longer days and the scent of pine and earth. Viera stood atop the southern wall, Kellen cradled against her chest. Rourke stood beside her, gaze sweeping the pines. Do you ever wonder if Blackstone will rise again? She asked softly. Perhaps, he said. But if it does, Iron Claw will still stand. And so will we. She nodded, hand brushing Kellen's soft hair. I never thought I'd have this, she whispered. A child. A home. A place where I belong. Rourke's hand closed over hers. You built it, Viera, he murmured. Stone by stone, choice by choice. She turned to face him, words catching in her chest. Thank you, she whispered. For seeing me. for believing, even when I couldn't. And thank you, he replied, voice rough, for teaching me what it means to hope. They stood in silence, the pack's life carrying on below, Garrick barking at new recruits, Jessa sparring in the yard, Anwen chasing butterflies. Viera pressed a kiss to Kellen's head. He'll never know the woman I was, she said. No, Rourke agreed. But he'll know the Luna who chose to stand. The wind stirred her hair, carrying the scent of summer and new beginnings. Viera closed her eyes, heart steady, scars no longer chains, but proof that she had fallen and risen again. Ironclaw was no longer just a fortress. It was family. And in that family, Viera had found her second chance, not given but claimed. As the sun broke over the pines, painting stone and earth in gold, Viera smiled. And in that smile lay everything she had lost, and everything she had chosen to become.